Welcome to Sports Beat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, April 1st, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. No, Danny Rojas, the character on the TV show Ted Lasso, didn't sign with Sporting Kansas City, as the team said in a release today. Check the date. It's April 1st. But there is plenty of soccer to discuss, with both Sporting KC and KC NWSL putting the finishing touches on preseason training. Sporting is looking to regain the form that made them the Western Conference champions last year, and as for the women's squad, it's great to see it back in Kansas City. FC Kansas City left in 2017 for Utah. Now the team is back, and their first game is next Friday. Beat writer Shaun Goodwin breaks down the clubs and even gets into a bit of a rant over the U.S. Under-23 national team not qualifying for the Olympics. So let's get going talking soccer with Shaun Goodwin. Okay, Shaun, I start this morning looking at my email, and I get a release from Sporting Kansas City. I'm thinking they got a player. That's interesting. That'll give us something to talk about right off the bat. Current events. And then I read the release, called it up and read it, and little April Fool's joke on from Sporting. It was kind of funny though, wasn't it?
I thought it was funny. There was a lot of people who didn't think it was funny. For people who don't know, they announced they signed Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso. Obviously, Ted Lasso and Jason Sudeikis being Kansas City folk. So I thought it was a funny tweet, but a lot of fans didn't. There was a little bit of backlash, asking, we need a left winger. Why would you make us joke? Blah blah blah. So, I'm glad there wasn't breaking news at 9 a.m. I was still half asleep. But I thought it was a good laugh.
Yeah, good laugh. And I'll tell you one thing before I forget it. At some point during our conversations as the season unfolds, we're going to devote some time to Ted Lasso and that show, award-winning show. I haven't seen it yet, so I want to binge it, and then talk to you about it. But soon after that release hit my inbox, we're starting to hear that Roy Williams, the North Carolina basketball coach who spent his first 15 seasons as a head coach at Kansas, it was retiring. And you think, well, wait a second, I just saw the Sporting Kansas City release, so this has to be a ha-ha as well. Turns out it wasn't. Roy Williams is stepping down after 33 years as a head coach. You weren't here when Roy was coaching at Kansas, were you?
I was not, no. So he's been at North Carolina for 15 years now.
18. He got there in 2003. His last year at KU was 2003.
I was 18 then. So I moved here in 2011. So I was way, way, way past Roy Williams, KU. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Look. So we haven't spent enough time talking about April Fool's jokes and the sort, but let's talk about Sporting Kansas City. When we last left Peter Vermes' club, they were licking their wounds from a difficult playoff loss to Minnesota. And I just remember the weight of that loss. It was just so disappointing the way they were outplayed that night, thoroughly outplayed by Minnesota. But it's a new season. Expectations are high for this team, and it starts with a couple of. Well, let's spend some time first of all talking about who is back for Sporting Kansas City. We know Matt Besler is not, but there are some familiar faces back on this club.
Yeah, I mean, you've really not lost too many players over this offseason. I mean, the big one was Matt Besler, but I think one of the big questions, especially through the January transfer window, was Gianluca Busio. He's always had interest in Europe, it seems like, for the last couple of years. He's only 18. I'm sure he'll go eventually. But, question was, it's January transfer window for Europe. Obviously, it's the off-season for sports, and, will he go? And he flips the script and takes the number 10 jersey instead, which was a big move for an 18-year-old, right?
Yeah.
Then, Johnny Russell gets made captain. Polizo's obviously still here to stay. You still have a bunch of veterans, Espinoza, Amelia, Zusi. So, the only big name really to leave would be Matt Besler.
but they did bring in a couple of big names here, and I'll leave it to you for the pronunciations.
Yes, so the two big ones is the easier one. Remy Walter, who actually a couple of months I was calling Remy Martin. He's the is he a basketball player?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
no, but no. Midfielder, he plays 6 or 8. When he first came in, I talked to Peter. He talked about using Remy at the 6, that centre defensive mid role. But since then, it looks like he's probably going to be pushing more up into that centre midfield, number 8 kind of role, box to box midfielder. Sporting's midfield is pretty stacked, but when you look at the injuries they've had, that's not a bad thing, right? You start to ask a question of the rotation there. You've got Remy Walter, you've got Buzio, of course, you've got Gadi Kinder, Espinoza. But no, that's a big sign. He's played in France and he's played in Europa League and a couple of high level teams. And then at the back, which is probably more important, they replaced Matt Biesler with Nicolas Izamat-Marin. Again, another Frenchman. He's played in France. He's played Champions League, actually. He's played against Atletico Madrid and Bayern Munich, and he's rubbed shoulders with some of the biggest names in European and world soccer. Honestly, Robert Lewandowski and all those kinds. But now, from what I've heard from Peter, Izamat-Marin, or Izzy, as I guess he is on second reference, that's kind of what the boys call him. He's kind of got it all by his sounds. Speed, height, he can jump, he's strong. Peter says he was really impressed with how much ground he could cover in a short space of time. So this season, I think probably we'll get and Roberto Punchek is probably our starting 2. And then it might feel like a new signing. I wrote a story about it only earlier this week. Andre Fontas too. He's been injured for, it feels like, forever. And fans didn't really know why. It turns out it was a Haglund's deformation. Both his Achilles, one after the other. And he had surgery. He's out for a year. So he's back. He's healthy. He played at the end of last season a couple of games and scored against Colorado too. So, I think those 3 could be a really good rotation. And with Graham Smith probably number 4 as well, that kind of centre-back role right there. So that's the big 2 coming into this new season.
Gosh, I always think of Fontas as a newcomer. The number of games he's played, just kind of can't wait for him to have a good full season with this club.
Yeah.
What is the expectation this year for this team? What are the pundits saying? It strikes me as with Peter, you never expect less than a good run at a championship. Yeah. But is this team capable?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe not always the championship goal. Certainly be out, so to speak, to your typical teams of your FC and Columbus nowadays, and New York City FC aren't looking too bad. But at the end of the day, they finished first in the West last year, and they didn't really lose any pieces. Like we said, he lost Biesler, but he was barely playing by the end of the season anyway. And what you've done is gain, solid credentialed players to slot into the rotation. So, absolutely. Obviously, again, expect a 34 full-game season. There's other competitions. If we want to talk about US Open Cup stuff, we can. There's the Leagues Cup later in the season. So, yeah, obviously more games, more rotation is going to be needed. And the season seems to be a bit backloaded for some reason, like congestion-wise. But, when you look at last season, finishing first in the West, there's no reason why that shouldn't be a goal. And then you mentioned the loss to Minnesota in the playoffs. They were thoroughly outplayed in the first half. But that was a tactical thing, like not marking the right players, so on and so forth. But even when you look at that game, Boston could have been 1 or 2-0 up before Minnesota even got a sniff of goal, and they kept it pretty even in the second half. So, when a bad 15-20 minute game knocks you out of the playoffs, yeah, it's one and done format nowadays. You can't afford that. But there's no reason why they shouldn't try and make another deep run this year.
And Minnesota was on fire at the end of last year as well, as I recall. They were just hard for anybody to handle.
Yep.
Hey,
Yep.
Let's switch to a more uncomfortable subject, and that is the elimination of the United States team from Olympic qualifying. They knocked them. They were knocked out by Honduras earlier this week, and that eliminated the United States from the Olympics, which are going to happen in Tokyo in a few months. And listen, Olympic soccer is not World Cup soccer, but it is an opportunity to represent your nation in a world competition. And I've noticed historically that because Olympic soccer is for basically it's capped at 23 years old, except for a few players. It ends up if you're successful, it ends up being something of a foreshadowing of maybe a national team a few years from now. I think Ghana, had an Olympic run a few years ago, or a few Olympics ago that said, "Oh wow, keep an eye on this bunch." But U.S. knocked out. What a disappointment that is, and there's a local twist to it too, isn't there?
Yeah. So just before we get to go, which was Peter talked about it in his press conference earlier this week, but just for the team itself, there's a lot of layers to unpack. I'll try not to go into all of them, but I think the major disappointment is at the end of the day, that wasn't the US's best U23 team. They were almost rolling out a C or a D team, while some of the best players, whether it's Christian Pulisic and Gio Reyna and Anthony Robinson, even they were all up with the full senior team playing a useless friendly against Northern Ireland. Like, okay, whoop-de-doo, while the US U23 team is being knocked out of Olympic qualifying. But my issue with it is, one, because of certain players not being called up, Gianluca Busio for a local twist being one of them for whatever reason, it's like the US wasn't taking it seriously in that. In Europe, you've got your Germany's, Italy's, England's, France's. Like the last World Cup, England didn't make it; they failed to qualify. But there's such a not rich soccer history, but a pedigree for those teams as well, that if they miss the Olympics one year, it's like, okay, well, we still know the senior team is great. A lot of those other countries won World Cups. England's won one in 1966, but those teams get, for lack of a better word, they have the clout, I guess. The US doesn't. The whole point of US soccer right now is, I get that there's some great players playing abroad, but they don't have the clout to be putting out C or D teams to the Olympics and acting like we don't care about this, we only care about the World Cup. If the US won an Olympics, heck, if the US got into the semis or the finals of Olympics, that is showing that, hey, there's a good generation of players coming up. We're here to stay, and it's a serious show of intention. And instead, they're sending out good soccer players. But I mean, I can just go through, like I said, Busio, Jeremy Abobis, he didn't even get called up. Cole Bassett for Colorado. These are players who, of age of U23, better than a lot of the players who were called up, and they were just left sitting at home. I don't know what the tactic was there. And then secondly, I'm sorry to rant on about this, but there's the tactics as well. And again, I'll give this a local twist of Busio. If you watch the Honduras game, there doesn't look to be any sort of creativity going forward. And a big reason of that was, if you look at the midfielders that the US brought along, they brought 6 in the squad, 5 were defensive-minded midfielders, and the 6th was Georgi Mihailovic, who's been playing as a winger more than number 10 nowadays. So then Jason Christ, the head coach, comes out and he's saying, we're not a team to hoof the ball up the field. We want to play the ball with our feet, play it out of the back, play pretty soccer. When you've got 5 defensive-minded midfielders and no creative midfielders in the team, you can't do that. who's going to be feeding the attackers to be scoring goals? And that's exactly where a guy like Buzio comes in, who even has a number 6, if he's playing defensive mid, he's attack-minded. He can take the ball, he can spray those good passes to the attackers, he can get the ball forward. And none of that seemed to have been taken into account for this U23 team this Olympic round. Okay, I'm done.
Well, no, that was good. And we're going to hear from Peter Vermes right now on he was asked about it at his press conference earlier this week by Greg Eklund, and I thought he gave a terrific answer. After we hear from Peter Vermes, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we've got a new team in town to discuss. So here is Peter Vermes.
I would say I share in the sentiment that very disappointed. I think you guys all know me very well. I always take the approach that if you're going to participate in something, then you should put every effort forward to then win in this vocation. If you're in sports, it's about winning. On the national team level, I think you have different tournaments, right? You have the World Cup, you have the Olympics, you have the U20s, 17s. You have these different competitions that you have in front of you and available to try and first off qualify for, and then second, then compete to try to win. And I think you should put everything you have forward to try to do that. I think the experience of the Olympics is a tremendous experience for the next generation of players that are coming through, because qualifying is very tough, and to now be to not share in that experience makes it more difficult when you ask those same players who haven't really participated in that kind of qualification rounds and against those teams that you're going to play. You then ask them to do that at the World Cup level. They are already lacking in experience. I think we have some tremendous talents right now. We have some incredible players, but I think that we should have done everything we could to have all the players that are eligible to play in the Olympics. We should have done everything we could to work with their clubs, to give them the opportunity to find success. And if we lose from there, then we have to ask other questions. And it's no disrespect to the players that were on the team. It's just that there's a lot of players out there that I see that could participate in that. And the fact that, I'm going to stand up for one of the players that we have. The fact that Busio was not included was incredibly surprising to me. Really was. When you talk about if you supposedly want to play, that kid can play. So it's unfortunate. It's just a huge opportunity lost from an experience point of view for all of our players going into this next generation of players. Because I know this as a player, I came through the system, and having played in the Olympics and gone through that qualification process, having to go to Honduras, Guatemala, Costa Rica, all these different places, El Salvador, it really helped when the next go around I had to get ready and try to qualify for the first time in 40 years for the World Cup in 1990. And having that experience beforehand was tremendously valuable.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. Shaun Goodwin, who covers soccer for the Kansas City Star, is with us, and we could spend an entire show talking sporting Kansas City, and I'm sure there'll be some shows where that occurs, but there's a second soccer team in town, Shaun, and it's great to see the women are back in Kansas City. Still don't no nickname for this team, and as you informed me, it's going to be the case, right, throughout the season.
Yeah, for the season, yeah, KC NWSL. And from what it sounded like you were talking about, especially when you do like a logo release and whatnot as well, that sounds like they'll probably keep certain aspects of the logo, but it sounds like once they've come up with branding, with a name and whatnot, there's going to be a new logo of sorts as well from. Sounds like when you first. So yeah, it's kind of like its first year. It's going to be get the merchandise while you can, because it'll be limited edition in a couple of years, right?
Hey, people will remember that the Sporting Kansas City was the Kansas City Wiz its first year in town. It was the only year it was the Wiz, became the Wizards after that, and then Sporting KC. So we still have a Kansas City Wiz pennant in our house somewhere. I'm going to the game. Collector's item from 1996. Listen, I'm so happy to see the team return. And their first stay in Kansas City was wildly successful. This was a terrific team, wasn't it, when they were here 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, they won 2 NWSL championships. They had US women's national team players on the team. It's just, the support wasn't there, unfortunately. And again, don't want to blame that wholly on the fans. I think we talked about this a couple of months ago as well. We don't have to get super in depth, but it was just bad ownership, bad marketing, full support wasn't behind the team, and it didn't pan out. So it's good to see them back in Kansas City. The Long family seems to be super invested, doing a really good job. I know we've mentioned in the Star a couple of times. I know Sam Mellinger did a really good piece on them a little while back. So now it's looking good. And I was actually chatting to Mallory Weber. She's on loan. She was on loan at Adelaide United since the Utah days. She's set to come back later this month, actually. And she was saying even from afar, she's just heard how much the city's embraced the team, the excitement. So yeah, it's good to have them back.
So just a couple nuts and bolts things. You wrote recently also that they've decided on a goalkeeper. And familiar name, familiar face. Who's that going to be?
Yeah, it's Abby Smith. She'll be starting goalkeeper going forward. And yeah, so she joined back in the Utah Royals days. And I mean, she's been a regular starter ever since she arrived, to be honest. But, when the team came back to Kansas City, head coach Hugh Williams, he says, I'm open to competition. I'm not just going to say, Abby, you're the starting goalkeeper right off the bat. And the club's got 3 goalkeepers. There's Carly Nelson, who she's a recent Utah grad. She played for the Reign for a little while. And then the big one is Nicole Barnhart, who we'll remember from the last stint here. And obviously she's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist with the US women's national team. She's a World Cup runner-up. But at the end of the day, she's 39 years old. And I mean, even my limited interactions with Barney, I love her, the coaching staff, the players all over her. But yeah, Hugh says that Abby Smith is the clear number 1 going forward. And yeah, that's vision, I guess. And it's not a huge surprise. Again, just, taking everything into account of Barney's age, Carly's pretty new to the league. Abby was the starter back in Utah. So it's not a huge surprise. But it's an angst regardless.
Okay, when is the KC NWSL's first game, and where are their home games?
Yeah, so the first game, I'll pull up schedule for the first home game, but the first actual game is April 9th. They're travelling to Portland against the Portland Thorns, and that's going to be for the Challenge Cup. So essentially, for fans who aren't super familiar, they did this last year too. Partly because of all the COVID stuff and whatnot, but the Challenge Cup, they're treating it as a season opener. There's 2 groups, and then each team will play each other once because there are 5 teams per group, and then the top 2 teams from each group will go on to play in the semi-finals and the final format. So that's against Portland Thorns, and then the first home game is April 26th, which is a Monday night. Where they're playing the Houston Dash, who were last year's Challenge Cup winners, actually. So they're welcoming the reigning champions, I guess. So yeah, that's first home game, and they'll be playing at, I believe it's called Legends Field now, where the KC Monarchs are former T-Bones or former iterations of its names. so yeah, that's where we'll be playing. Capacity-wise, I've not been told an exact number. What I was told was the Monarchs, I believe, are doing 50 capacity. So the hint I was given, it's not confirmed. But when I asked the PR folk, KC Woso, KC NWSL, you're like, we can't say yet, but the Monarchs are doing 50%. So I think it'll be around there somewhere. And I guess just my last point tonight is if you go to the Twitter account for the women's team, released a video yesterday, just showing what the stadium will look like, how they're transforming the baseball stadium into a soccer stadium. They're adding a line of bleachers down, I guess it would be third baseline, right. To essentially, so it's not like bleachers. It's where it stands off of the regular baseball field. They're pulling bleachers forward in the outfield. So fans can be a little bit closer to the action there.
Okay, and how about Sporting KC? When is their first game?
Sporting's first game is, again, should have this off the top of my head. 1 second. They are playing on the road to start. Yep, April 17th. So they play in New York Red Bulls away. That's the season opener. And then they will return against Orlando City on April 23rd. And that's one of the few, a couple of the few East Coast teams that could play. It's heavy this season, heavy towards the Western Conference. I think that's just because of COVID and keeping things, a little bit more sectionalized. But yeah, so Orlando, April 23rd is the home opener. And capacity-wise for them, they will be at 6,500, so about 35% capacity. But apparently, they could have went higher, apparently, for capacity. But they wanted to start low, keep things safe, and as the season progresses, reduced capacity will increase until, hopefully, by the end of the year, when I hope COVID is everyone's vaccinated, or everyone who wants to be vaccinated is vaccinated. We can hopefully be back to full capacity by the end of the year, but that's just me being hopeful.
Well, I know the Royals, who have their home opener today, and the Chiefs have the same hopes that by the time...
Wear my Royals jersey today.
Yeah, good cap and jersey on. You are ready to roll. So, all right, Shaun, it was great catching up with you after a couple of months of not talking soccer. We're going to try to do it on a pretty regular basis this season. And we will talk to you again soon, buddy.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rose, and Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. And tip of the cap to Shaun Goodwin for stopping by and talking Sporting Kansas City and KC NWSL. Links to his stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we got another deal for you. You can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. Sports Pass is the Stars sports section online. You get all the stuff that is in the print product, plus much, much more. After 3 months, this deal auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. And what a time to subscribe. The Royals are opening their season today. March Madness is this weekend with the Final Four, and it's never not Chiefs season, as you know. So how do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. You want more than just sports? Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You got all the stories written by my uber-talented colleagues, plus additional national news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. I love the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of these offers, you send me an email, bkirkhoff@kcstar.com, and I will get you to the right place. So whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we will be back on Friday with another episode.